Can't think of anything more beautiful or more powerful. Beats every religion, hands down.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you read the book, The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm?
I have skimmed it. There are so many books that I have taken in bits and pieces. Is it one you would recommend?
Yeah, you should read it.
Okay.
I read it, when I was a teenager. I mean, I also had my own youth group, but that was organized by the local, Catholic center.
Nice.
And I think it's highly recommendable because Erich Fromm is a highly learned man.
Yes, yes.
But when it comes to what he calls erotic love, he didn't feel that it should be considered as love because, I mean, there is, at least for most people, there's a possessive element to it. Mm-hmm. And so he felt that because, it's possessive and sometimes, involves some kind of selfishness, so it wouldn't be considered love for him. So I want to talk about that also.
Sure.
Yeah.
I heard for years, especially in post-Christian spiritual circles, that attachment and desire and jealousy or possessiveness were wrong, bad, that we were to avoid those, overcome those, etc. And I suppose it all depends on how we're wired. I personally understand jealousy to me means I am very invested in something. I treasure something, it's sacred to me, and therefore I will protect it from any kind of threat that would get in the way of that being held as a sacred container between me and my partner. Yeah. So it's I don't mind a certain level of possessiveness. To me, actually feels flattering and empowering. So if my partner calls me his woman or says you're mine, and I say the same thing back to him, to me it's a form of endearment. And I recognize that doesn't work for everybody. Again, I want to go back to, we need to know ourselves. We need to know who we are and how we're wired. And I explored my spirituality and my sexuality in depth because I wanted to know my truth. I didn't want to receive that which had been handed to me and say, oh, I must be this Christian monogamous heterosexual woman by default. That's unconscious monogamy. And from there can be a pendulum swing to a more openness, whether it's polyamory or multiple partners. There's so many different ways people can define a more non-monogamous relationship. And some people stay there and some people go there out of reaction to the confinement. But what I discovered, I came sort of full circle and I came back to what I like to describe as conscious monogamy. I know all the options, but I know what fits me. And I wouldn't impose what fits me onto anyone else. But I also don't like how monogamy and a sense of belonging and pair bonding is often denigrated as less spiritual, less evolved, less open. I object to that because for me, conscious monogamy means that I have looked at all of my options and I have made a conscious decision to dedicate myself and my sexuality and my desire and my growth to this one person who looks like the universe gave me. He matches me. And within that container, we can explore all kinds of things. So I liken it to the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon has very high boundaries, very high boundaries. And within that, you can have wild, raging rapids because passion to me, monogamy doesn't have to be boring. To me, it's incredibly passionate, all the more so because I have forfeited all others. I don't have a back door open. I don't have an escape hatch or a backup plan. I'm all in with this person. And obviously it needs to grow together, etc. It's not a I'm not holding them to something. I'm choosing ongoingly. I choose to be with you. I choose to be with you. But when there aren't boundaries, the Mississippi, for instance, very low boundaries, and it's a very slow river. It's boring. I've been on it. I would rather have the thrilling ride of the passion, which I believe that because of how I'm wired, those high boundaries are requirements for the passion and the excitement that I'm wired to experience. So you'll often find workshops in spiritual circles where the focus is on monogamy. And they'll say, yeah, do that sex thing. It's like, it's mentioned, given a little bit of tribute, but not a lot of depth. It's like, yeah, it's important, but let's talk about other things. And then in other places, you'll have where there's spiritual expression and tantra and passion, but there's boundaries are pushed. You're encouraged to experience this passion, this energy with others to whom you are not connected, like breaking up partnerships and go have this with that person or with that person. And what I want is to take that passion and that monogamy and bring them together. And for those who are wired that way, to assure them it doesn't have to be boring or vanilla. It can be wild, passionate, over the top, highs, lows, everything, with the security of knowing that this is sacred and between the two of you and not for anybody else. And I want that. I want that partnership, and I want to be a catalyst and an inspiration for others to also have this. Not imposed on them. If people are wired to be different, that's for them. They get to explore their own paths. But I've seen lately the passionate monogamy path being denigrated and discounted. And I don't see it as archaic at all. I see it as highly evolved. That's how I experience it.
You know that there's a recent book, was published maybe 10 years ago. It's called Mating in Captivity. Have you?
Esther Perel, yes. Yeah. She's one of my heroes, yes. Yeah.
So she tends to feel that familiarity would breed some kind of boredom. Yeah. So how would you, address that?
I appreciate the question, because I spent a lot of time reading her books and listening to what she had to say. I was previously in a partnership where he leaned more polyamorous, I was more monogamous, and we couldn't make it work. We tried. We really tried.
That was after your first marriage.
Yes, that was a more recent, almost 7-year relationship. Yes, ended earlier this year, after a lot of attempts to make it work. And one of the people that I listened to often, and I was trying to find a therapist who had been trained by Esther Perel. I would have loved to have been on her show, but she, Where Do We Begin, I believe was her podcast. I loved what she had to say, because she's a scientist in the sense that she looks for evidence, and yet she also made a good case for the intentional monogamous couple. And she said, yeah, there will be some work, because as she describes it, we have love needs, which are all about commitment and safety and fidelity and familiarity. And then we have our erotic needs, which are all about mystery and separation.
Novelty,
and variety and adventure. And to take those needs, which are valid, and these needs, which are valid, and put them together in the same relationship does require a lot of intentional work and self-awareness that I don't believe everybody has prepared themselves for. Now, for me, this is a huge passion in my life, so I have dedicated myself to exploring the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs of the intimate relationship, because I am relationship centric, and this really matters to me. There's nothing that matters more to me than this. A lot of things tangentially matter, but this is central. This is core for me. And it's not codependency, it's interdependency. So we can use the same language. Like when you say, I need you as a codependent, you're saying, I need you so I can survive. When I say I need you as an interdependent person, I'm saying I need you in order to thrive in these ways that I cannot do so on my own as an independent person. I'm a whole independent person. I want another whole independent person, and I want to come together and reflect as mirrors for each other and have this parallel, very close, intimate connection with each other, where we're helping each other do what we couldn't do on our own, because we need that catalyst, that person to play off of. So I personally have experienced and believe I'm capable and am meant to thrive in a relationship with one person, in my case, a man, who, and he'd have to be a very masculine man because I'm a very feminine woman. So that yin yang, that match would have to be there. But he has to be aware of his own inner feminine, just like I have to be aware of my own, you know, my animus matches with his anima as well as our external. So there's this beautiful complex dance, which the yin yang symbol shows that we have a little bit of each other inside. So when I take my love needs and my erotic needs and I can bring them together with the same person, that means there needs to be this coming apart and coming together. We come apart to build the desire, which means having your own interests and desires and passions. Because as Esther points out, one of the things we find most attractive in our partner is when we see them shine, especially when others notice that they're shining. So if I'm in a relationship with a man and let's say he's a musician, so when he's doing the thing he's passionate about and he's playing that instrument, and I get to stand back from a distance and watch him, not up close part of me yin yang, but oh, there he is by himself doing his thing, and I get to fall in love with him over and over, and I get to see him vicariously through the eyes of the others who are looking at him and going, look at him shine. Look what a beautiful person that is. And it can be the same for me. So when I'm doing the things I do, my art, my expressing, my writing, and others are seeing me, and he gets to say, oh, look at her shine. I'm watching her from a distance, and he gets to fall in love with me all over again, because we're always growing and evolving. This person I went to sleep with at night went through realms. He went into the astral plane overnight, and who knows what adventures and growth. He's a whole new person I get to fall in love with every day. And this takes great intentionality. This takes a dedication and a commitment to the other's growth. So it's not a static, it's not, you better not ever change now that I've got you. It's this letting go to let this person be themselves, but also this commitment to come very close. And I can't think of anything more exciting than that versus, all right, I'm marrying you, never change. We're both supposed to change. But I do believe it's possible for those who are wired for this, for those who believe this is it's a calling, who are called to this intimate partnership connection, that we can take those love needs and those erotic needs, and they can come together in a way that I can't think of anything more exciting, more comfortable. The idea of being with someone who makes me feel both safe and comfortable and excited and daring at the same time. Yeah, sign me up for that.
And it has worked for you in your previous partnership.
There have been elements of it working for me in previous partnerships. Now, my first marriage, I would have described as unconsciously monogamous. We were young, we had a bunch of children, we were adhering to the church, and until I had my Kundalini experience and started questioning everything, I just assumed my role was what it was. And it wasn't until I started questioning, and I had to go through the process of discovering, who am I really, aside from all of the taken on identities that others had given me? Who am I as this individual soul? And my Kundalini experience was my birthing of that shattered me out of the story of the golden Buddha who was covered over by the mud. And for centuries, everyone thought it was a clay Buddha until there was a crack And one of the monks saw this gleaming coming out of it. And the 500 years before, when they were being attacked by an invading army, they covered over this golden Buddha with the mud to protect it. Like, who's going to pay attention to a mud Buddha? But underneath all the time was this gold. And it's the same with all of us. So our conditioning covers us like this covering of mud, of clay that's not really us, but it kind of protects us in those early formative discovery years, but eventually it cracks. And what comes out is the gold that was always there. And each of us gets to make that discovery about who we really are. And I don't know yet all the reasons why I was so entrenched in Christianity for 30 very long years. I often call them 30 odd, often very odd years. I don't know why I was chosen to be, or why my soul chose, and then I forgot, to be in that and then to come out of that, except that I do know viscerally what it's like to be enslaved by something, to be liberated from that thing, and the terrifying, exciting discovery of finding out who I really am and daring to be that and inspiring everybody I come in contact with to see and be who they really are. That excites me tremendously. And so the intimate relationship, the romantic, intimate, sexual relationship with a partner for me is the vehicle by which I get to do the deepest, most fulfilling of that work. And I just turned 59. I'm nearing the end of my life. I mean, I haven't fully grown up yet, so I don't know what a 59-year-old woman is supposed to look and act like. I don't feel like what I thought it would be like right now.
You still have a lot of life left. I'm 67 and I still feel very much alive.
Exactly, thank you. And my grandmother was in her 90s when she died, and she'd had a stroke, and she reached out to me. She goes, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I still feel so alive. And it's like, yeah, Nana, me too. And I want to soak up every bit of what this life has for me and live it full throttle. So I'm not in this being on a front porch in a rocker, holding my grandchild and talking about stories of the old days. No, I want to be making new stories. I've got so much life left for me to do. So I haven't yet fully experienced the partnership that I have been incrementally prepared to have. Everything I've experienced so far has been training ground, proving ground for who I am now and where I am now. And I have met someone, and we've shared for several months now, all of these insights, all of the longings we've both had, the near misses we've each had in our own past experiences. And we do want the same thing. And circumstances are such that that hasn't yet been allowed to have a material physical manifestation. So it's kind of like I'm pregnant with the thing I've always wanted the most. And I'm aware, because when this kind of thing gets catalyzed, all of the stuff that objects, all of the unresolved issues in each of their history and their hearts, the unresolved wounds, pain, shadows, all that comes up to the surface. It starts looking like, oh, this can't work. But actually it's so that each of us can deal with those things. So I know I'm here living by myself during this time where, so much of us are being sequestered from each other, for the purpose of fine-tuning the healing that I need to do on my part so that this can become a union. And I'm trusting that. I have no reason not to. It's what I've always wanted, and I don't believe we're given desires just to tease us and torment us and make us miserable. I believe that desires are kind of like the germination, the conception of a pregnancy, and that we can become pregnant and gestate this baby of a desire until it's ready to be born. And like with all things, caterpillar in a cocoon, a chicken and egg, a seed underground, if we try to help it come out of our eagerness to bring it into the light from the dark, we kill it. The baby's born too soon. The chick isn't ready to breathe air. The butterfly needs to struggle out of the cocoon to be strong enough to fly. So what I'm learning right now is to be content and to receive and accept and say yes, to not resist what life is bringing me now, which is this time of fine-tuning the healing and nurturing that desire the same way I did. I mean, I had 8 babies. I know what it's like to be pregnant and have life inside of me I can't see yet, and to trust the timing of that birth and the transition, which often is painful. Transition, you know, human species is in transition right now, and it feels like death. But transition is always, always the announcement of beautiful new life that's right around the corner. We just need to get through. We need to surrender to the transition and trust in the dark. And then at the right, most benevolent time, there's new life, there's birth.
And you believe that, you see, a lot of the people who are into more like an open relationship, right? They believe that, you know, one person cannot satisfy, you know, all your needs. Because, I mean, each person has, you know, limitations.
It's possible that we're each wired uniquely for that. And I value friendships. I've moved a lot. I've been to a lot of places. I'm a very connective person. I'm kind of balanced in my need for both solitude and connection. I need a near balance of the two. It can fluctuate depending on seasons. Right now I've had a lot of solitude, so it's it's been challenging. But Esther Perel puts it, you know, we now expect our partner to give us what once took an entire village to provide, right? So I hear that, and there's validity to that. So I don't believe we are meant to live in isolation with our partner. Now that's right now with this happening with COVID, there's a lot of that happening, and there's rewards, pros and cons where that's concerned. But I do believe we're meant to be, well, the way I see it, there's the partnership. So there's a relationship I have with myself, and I need to be in alignment with my own truth within myself. Everything subconscious, conscious mind, everything working together. And that's an ongoing process. It's not like we arrive. It's part of being alive, part of being human. And then there's the connection with, as a monogamous woman, there's the connection with my partner. And I would get most of my deepest needs met. There are things friends can give me that I can get things from those friends, but I can't get the sexual, deep, intimate connection from them. I can get the friendship needs from my partner. So I see that as the primary relationship that I do safeguard. I see that there are many ways, many things that can be threatening, both internal and external, about that partnership, and it is precious to me, so I safeguard it. Not out of fear, but because it's sacred and valuable to me. And then I have a circle of friends, and I value them. Some of these people go back years and decades with me, and I value them, but I would require of my friends to honor my relationship. So because I value the relationship, I would want my partner to know my friends. No secret, private friends out here, especially in my case, the opposite gender, where I would be confiding in them and not telling my partner that. That's a setup for bonding with that person that then becomes a threat to this relationship. So I'm very aware of that, very conscious of that. It comes to me naturally. I don't have to think, what would I say, what would I do? I know my truth. And then of course there are a periphery of other people. I'm a social creature. I have a lot of associates and people I connect with, social media and otherwise when we can do that. I teach art classes. I value those as well. So I get a lot of things from a lot of different people. But, you know, in times of crisis, in times of big celebration, the highs and the lows, for me, there's that one person I would want to turn to. You know, disaster strikes. Who's that one that you think, if the world's going to end, I'm going to be with him. You know, I'm going to find him and we're going to ride that out together. I get a lot of things from a lot of people, but that for me is the primary thing, and nothing else could compensate for that. So that's my view. And I do know other people see it differently. I've got a lot of friends who are in polyamorous relationships, and I've seen this over the years. I've explored whether that could work for me in the past because I wanted to know my truth, and it didn't work for me. It's not how I'm wired.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I wouldn't ask them to be like me either. I want equal value. And recent years, I've heard polyamory extolled, Sex at Dawn and other books have talked about how this is how we've always been. And monogamy has been put down as this possessive, controlling, you can't own another person's genitals, all of the things. It's not spiritually evolved. It's not open. It's repressed. And I object to that. I think we each deserve to know who we are and to fully inhabit that without apology and without imposing it on anybody else. So I would support anybody's view to discover who they are.
That would be a good topic to explore in a group,
Absolutely.
Very valid, question.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we can celebrate each other's differences. I think it's possible. I think we need to learn that as humans.
Yeah. You have any questions for me?
What is your view on all of this? I know you were raised Buddhist and you came from a different starting point than I did, and yet we've come to this place where there's a lot of similarity, and that to me is exciting, that people can come from different places and like hone down to the basics and say, oh, look, we're human and we have all of these amazing things that we can relate to each other with. But
well,
what would be different for you?
I was raised Christian, and my parents, were Christian.
Okay.
My family, basically all Christian, but I was a free spirit, even in my youth. So I learned Buddhism, and Buddhism. I mean, actually, I learned more like Taoism first. That was taught in school, and I just fell in love with Taoism, when I was 16 or something. And I never lost interest in that. And then I also, were exposed to Buddhism. Although Buddhism did not, really come into my Buddhism did not come into full maturity until I was about, 40, when I met a group of, highly educated Buddhist friends. So, but being born and raised in Hong Kong has its advantage, because I mean it's a place where the East and West come together.
Right.
And you can learn all kinds of different spirituality. Yeah. So that's good. And
so you had the freedom to explore at an early age versus feeling like you had a mandate against it.
Yeah. I left the church pretty early. I mean, probably around 17.
Wow.
But it was not because of the sexual part, although Christianity has a very puritanical sexual morality. But my main objection was with its was reading the Old Testament. There's a lot of genocide, genocide and cruelty, which was people who are just a little different from you.
Exactly.
So I left the church very early, and I explored other religions. So and also a whole lot about Christianity, which very few people have that kind of in-depth kind of knowledge. And I also know a little bit about Islam. I know a little bit about paganism, like the Wicca,
Yes.
And Native American spirituality is very close to Taoism.
It is.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't really identify myself with any particular, school.
Right.
But I would say, in terms of what touches my soul, that's really Taoism. Because I mean, Taoism is much more free spirit, and it's not that much of a rigidity,
Right. You get to be yourself within it. You get to be your own authority rather than adhering to particular tenets.
Yeah. And Taoist philosophy, I mean, Confucianism is much more of the establishment's philosophy,
Yes.
whereas Taoism is really for the basically people who are not in power. You're talking about the artists, the poets, the people
The
who
renegades.
are. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So that fits my personality much more,
Nice.
And I've always been a heretic,
Yes.
and I love that role,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And even in the groups on Facebook, I mean there are monks who come to my groups and very much enjoy my writings, even though that I'm oftentimes I'm very critical of Buddhism and Christianity,
Right.
because I mean they're basically very much anti-sex and anti-pleasure.
Yes.
So
Isn't that funny?
when you're so anti-pleasure, you're basically anti-human.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Agreed.
And so I formed this group, which is the Arrows group, right? I would say 2 years ago, with the explicit purpose of destigmatizing and rehabilitating, sexuality and Arrows, And I think that, I mean, according to what you related earlier, there's a high need for that, because apparently there's still a lot of Christian women, who are still, suppressing, when you suppress the sexual side of you're suppressing something very basic,
And whatever we repress is going to be unhealthily expressed one way or another.
So, I mean, I would say in the past 3 or 4 years, I talked to a lot of different people, so I get to know, what people who don't really talk about in Christian circles or in Buddhist circles, but these are real people and who are relating their real issues.
And we suffer when we don't have a way to talk about this. It's such a primary part of life. I mean, it's how we get here. All life begins with somebody's orgasm, and we push it aside as if it's unseemly. People will say, "Oh, my mind went to the gutter. I have a dirty mind." No, it's not dirty. It's beautiful. It's powerful, and we need to respect and honor that power. I mean, obviously, anything that has a great deal of power needs to be taken with a great deal of responsibility, because harm can happen when we don't. It's important. It's I've heard it said that anything can be a medicine or a toxin depending on dosage. And for me, it's not literally the dosage, such as how frequent is your sexual activity, but dosage meaning, are you giving it preeminence in your life? Are you giving it honor? Are you being responsible with this incredible gift that you've been given, this powerful gift? And there are ways to abuse it. Everything that we can abuse can also be a thing that can be beneficial. So if we're compensating because of some wound, if we're hurting ourselves or someone else, or dishonoring ourselves or someone else, then obviously that's damaging. But that doesn't mean we write off the whole thing as if it's not we can learn to appreciate it. And I think one of the first steps in doing so is to look at our perspective of shame. How much do we shame sexuality in ourselves and in others? And releasing that shame doesn't mean wild abandon everywhere anything goes with anybody, unless that's how you're wired and you have consent with those everybody's. but it's about removing the shame so we can find out who we really are and how we want, how we are wired to express this gift. And it starts with that, I believe, removing the shame, facing the truth about ourselves, and then we will naturally gravitate toward and attract that which matches our authenticity. Not because you don't want to match personas. You don't want to match your false persona with somebody else's false persona, and that's not a relationship. That's a situationship. That's a mess.
Yeah. So I started talking about sex as a spiritual, as part of your spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
That dates back all the way back to I would say the mid to late 90s. So I've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, you have.
I was probably the only Chinese Buddhist teacher who would dare to even raise that issue. Yeah, I'm much more of in a sense, I'm much more of an intellectual. I take the more like a scholarly approach and a lot of research on my own. I also talk to a lot of people. So, what I'm trying to say, if you have read my latest presentation, is that intimate relationship fits in with the Bodhisattva's path almost perfectly, because what people didn't know, and especially people who are monastics, they thought that, oh, you have an intimate relationship and then you're seeking pleasure, right? But I mean, these are people who have never got married, so they never knew, how difficult, a marriage can be, And at one point in time, I even said, that was like about a year ago during a Buddhist meeting. I mean, I met two Buddhist ladies, who are from the Chinatown community, and they were telling me that, sexuality should never be a part of the Buddhist practice. And I told them, it's quite the opposite. It's precisely because, intimate relationships are difficult. It brings out all the things that you need to work on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Your jealousy,
absolutely.
Your possessiveness, your ego, everything.
Yeah. Right? Everything you thought you safely tucked away will come up and to be dealt with. Yeah. And it's a gift for that. It's how we heal.
In a sense, it's much easier if you just sit in a cave and meditate.
Yes. Yes.
You have to deal with. Right?
The guru on the hill, what is it? Ram Dass used to say, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family. And the intimate relationship, you never let somebody in that closely as with that partner. They see a part of you that even you don't see. And it's an incredible vehicle for transformation and growth.
So Krishnamurti says that, your relationships are your mirrors.
Yes.
Right? So that's very true.
Absolutely.
Not only is it a mirror, but also is the opportunity of service.
Yes.
Right? Because I mean, people who are monastics or ascetics, they just don't see how much of a service we're offering our partners.
Yes.
In various ways, in terms of sharing, the cooking, sharing the housework. Exactly. Down to sharing, you're helping your partner achieve orgasm. That is service. I mean,
and we don't get to hear often enough the health benefits, mentally, psychologically, physically, that comes with having a healthy sex life, where we become more balanced. Our hormones come into balance. Living the ascetic life is not necessarily healthy, and they don't look too happy either.
Yeah, that's the next point I want to get to. Again, about a year ago when we had the Buddhist meeting, this lady, came with her friend, And both of them, I believe, are celibate, right?
Mm.
They are celibate lay people, right? And just a little bit after the lady started talking, we'll realize that she really has some kind of mental issue.
Oh,
So it's in the order of paranoia, you know.
wow.
She found that she's been bugged by some kind of big, you know, big corporations, you know, that they're peering into her private life and something like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, that actually happens a lot if you don't, I mean, it's easier to have psychological troubles if you don't have sex. Right?
Exactly.
If you go through the slides that, you know, that I sent you, you know, sex is very, very beneficial for having, you know, it relieves you not only of your stress, right, but also of depression.
Yes.
You know? And it helps you
Absolutely.
sleep, definitely.
Absolutely.
And it gives you the good hormones. I mean, the dopamine, the, you know, oxytocin, you know, all kinds of, you know, health benefits. I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's virtually unconscionable, you know, to tell people not to have sex.
I totally agree. It also helps with things like our creativity and our ability to be productive with whatever our career is. It just, it makes everything better. I mean, it's a way to celebrate when you're feeling down. I'm sorry, the other way around. Celebrate when you're feeling happy, to find consolation when you're feeling down, to enjoy anything. I mean, there's so many different ways to connect with our partner that go way beyond, oh, it's Wednesday and there's nothing good on TV, so what the heck? there's it doesn't need to be boring. And it does take intention and it does take effort, but the benefits, the rewards for having done so, and it's free. I mean, you know, you don't have to get on a cruise ship or book a flight to go to some exotic locale. It's all about going with your partner into another realm that's right there. And whatever limits somebody, whatever is keeping them from having this in their life, deserves to be explored, because I do believe we are fully intended to have a rich, robust, satisfying, transformative sex life from early in life all the way to the end. There's no, oh, I guess I'm too old for this anymore. The idea of sex being only for procreation makes no sense. As a female who, I mean, I'm no longer going into estrus. I'm in menopause, so I can't procreate. Sex is for bonding. It only can create a baby in about a 48-hour window every month if all conditions are perfect. And it doesn't always happen, but it's for bonding, primarily for transformation.
A lot of people don't understand why there's a female orgasm, you know, because I mean, for men, you know, orgasm, you know, brings the semen, you know, but medical community did not. I think they still think of female orgasm as a biological mystery. You know?
Yeah, there's a really good movie called Hysteria that was about the turn of the previous century and the suffragette movement, when the vibrator was first discovered, because women would say, oh, I have hysteria, and they were sexually frustrated because their husbands didn't know how to give them an orgasm, and their husbands often had mistresses. So these women would be sexually frustrated, would go to their doctor, who would manually stimulate them to orgasm. And these doctors were getting tired. So they invented the vibrator to make it easier on these poor doctors. And the idea that women even have sexuality has been sidelined, but men and women are capable of multiple orgasms of all different kinds. There's so much to explore, so much to explore. We don't let ourselves have that experience often enough. And we get too tired, we get too busy. We think of it as something that we'll do at the end of the day when all of the conditions are, well, no, you might not have enough sex if you wait for that. It should be celebrated. It should be any time of the day or multiple times. And there's ways of delaying ejaculation for a man so that he can have multiples. There's just so much to explore that most people don't even know, and that it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah. So that's what the group is for. It's I think that you fit right into a leadership role, because first of all, you have conviction about the importance.
I do. I am convicted.
Yeah.
Committed and convicted. Yes.
And you are articulate. You're able to articulate your points.
Thank you.
Which is very good.
I tend to excel at everything about which I am passionate, and sexuality and helping people be alleviated from their shame and their inhibitions and their struggles and their suffering is, at the heart of this is compassion, that people shouldn't have to suffer about something that's so important and has so many benefits to give them. And I can't emphasize enough that the sacred nature of it. I used to do sexuality coaching, and unfortunately, a good number of men, especially in countries where sexuality is repressed, would contact me and they went, "Where's the webcam?" And they would think it was about sexting with me. I say, no, this is not about sexually relating to me, with me. This is about me being a coach to help you discover what are your personal limitations, inhibitions, shame, all the stuff that gets in the way of you discovering who you are. And I didn't get taken seriously. And unfortunately, that's one of the pitfalls of being a woman who wants to discuss the topic of sexuality, because I know I can do so in a way that honors who I am and the sacredness of the relationship that I want to have with my partner as being a separate place. This is where it gets expressed and fully unleashed, is in here. And I don't let anyone invade that. I don't display that. That's private, that's sacred for the reason, the high walls of the Grand Canyon. But I know because I've done it. I'm doing it now. There's a way to talk about sexuality in a way that is open, that is informative, that is honoring, that is respectful, but doesn't turn it into something cold, hysterical, clinical. Because I want people to have fun. I want them to enjoy this, but I also want them to see how powerful and sacred it, I believe, is when it's best, when those conditions are met.
Yeah. So I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah. It's a good first